I won't talk about what we're doing in downtown Columbus, but talk a bit about the real estate market. And I'll characterize what's happening in Columbus, and I suspect it's the same with Cleveland. The things are okay. The office market has added jobs consistently over the last 30, 40 years as the market share of the commercial office market in Central Ohio has dropped. Our vacancy rate hit a national high in 2003, 26%. It dropped back down to 14%. It's back up to just over 18%, which is slightly better than the suburbs in Columbus. Our downtown population in 1950, in what is now downtown, was 30,000 people. That population dropped to 3,500 people. By the year 2000, that population is back up to about 5,600. There's enough market rate housing now that it can be subject to cycles. Before, there's so little, there wasn't even the possibility of responding to real estate cycles. And it's doing okay. And we have no retail. We built a mall in downtown and sucked in all the retail from the streets and then collapsed. And so we literally have no retail in downtown Columbus now. We don't even have a wig shop in downtown Columbus.
You have a museum store.
We do have a museum store. And so we're really building the retail sector back up from scratch. There is a demand for retail. It's not met. It's going to take years to build it back up because the chains are gone. The chains are not coming back. We really have to work with entrepreneurs and start up and independent retail. Downtown's fragile. Downtown Columbus is fragile. It looks okay, but it's pretty fragile. And it's fragile because energy prices right now favor suburban development and suburban patterns. As long as there's cheap energy, you'll see continued flight from Cuyahoga County, from Franklin County. And our public policy and our infrastructure investments have all favored the suburbs. And so really what we do in downtown Columbus, and I suspect in downtown Cleveland, is we put Band-Aids on the real problem, which is public policy and cheap energy. And we're doing okay. I mean, I think all of us are doing okay. But our job has been over the years keeping our downtowns alive.
Very good. Ned Hill, how about you lay it out for us a little bit? 3 minutes, Ned.
3 minutes. Well, I have to admit that I'm a little nervous up here because these two guys to my right both are introducing a solution to the problems of downtowns, and they're saying we're introducing SIDS to cure a disease. So the MDs will figure out what the problem with this is. Make certain you be aware of what your initials mean. But I do work in economic development. We can no longer refer to our activities ED. We're now ECD. Again, thanks to advertising.
You're on a roll now.
I'm working at it. 3 minutes are almost up. So obviously it's a profound and basic problem. As we look at downtowns across the nation, as well as the 3C plus D corridor, the world has changed fundamentally, and it means that these downtowns have to come up with a new economic and social purpose. One of the real problems that we have with all of these pieces of real estate is we call them the central business district, and they just aren't anymore. Right now in Cleveland, there are 5 competing central business districts spread out across the region. So you really have to get down to the fundamentals about what the purpose is and what is the value proposition for living or working downtown or having an office downtown. And the value proposition's increasingly one about talent and talent attraction. If you think about Cleveland in particular, downtown Cleveland, Independence, Rockside are the only 2 places that have access to a full 180-degree labor market. Our northern suburbs are damp, so that doesn't work. You've got them 360. The other thing is we think about the populations of downtown. You have an employee population, you have a day tourist population, you have a visitor population, but then you've got the residents population. So as we've looked at vibrant, exciting downtowns, including Portland, Oregon, where if you were 20 years ago, it was last person out of downtown, turn out the light. We've seen things that work and don't work. And I don't criticize Cleveland at all. We've run several natural experiments, and they failed. The first natural experiment was downtown was going to be home of the Fortune 1000 headquarters. They took a vote, preferences were revealed, and I-271 won an awful lot of that business. The second was we're going to save downtown by retaining the business we have and then solve it all with tourism. Well, it turns out that tourists like to visit places that people live. Even if you go to D.C., the first time you do all the monuments, you'll stay on K Street. Second time, you're going to be up in Georgetown because there's the pulse and the feel. Think about Santa Fe. Disney does the state capitol, but you're there to share the residential experience. So the important thing about downtown is there's no longer a silver bullet. And the other thing we have to realize is people start their businesses close to where they live. And if they don't live downtown, they're going to start their business downtown. And so what we're seeing in Cleveland is a change not only in the value proposition, but in what the purpose is. So what's the dominant vision that we need? There are a couple parts that really are important. The dominant vision is, first, downtowns only can exist and prosper if they take advantage of the natural assets they have. We have to stop building gray walls of cement between us and water, right? Even if it's for an aquarium, right? Because you want the fishies in their natural environment. Now, aquariums are important, they're great, terrific, but don't cut off the lake anymore. Second thing is the amenities have to be primarily respond to a residential population, and we'll share them for the rest. So the great thing that Joe did with in Downtown Partnership and did with reimagining Public Square is I want to know who is it primarily for. It's got to be primarily for residential. I mean, I see a future where the best apartment building in the city of Cleveland actually is Terminal Tower. Concierge living, you can park, you got elevators, and those floor plates are difficult to reduce for apartments, so the Ratners have that one for free. All right. The other thing about downtowns that really work is intense localness. Retailing has changed. We have smaller numbers of natural retail chains and pipelines. I look at retailing as a continuum from getting to entertainment. Right? I'm a guy, I get. So the web wins on getting. Okay. Entertainment is what Legacy Village is all about, right? Which is neither a legacy nor a village. Steve Lick got us that. But that's what the whole thing's all about. Hey, I'm working. So what really makes it and gets you there is intense localness. What did the city of Austin, Texas do with their city hall? Downtown, the ground floor of City Hall is all retail, only for locally owned businesses. Not for political reasons, but so that they keep Austin weird. So you go to Portland, Oregon, Portland, Maine, both have infinitely better retail than Cleveland. Why? Because it's so intensely local.
So you've made some really good cases for the kinds of things that need to be done in Cleveland and other downtowns and what is already being done. Here's a question I have for you. When I was a kid, we get on the 55, my grandmother and I, we'd come down to Cleveland and we'd shop at Higbee's.
Oh, we're having a Figler moment.
And right. And back in my day, I actually had an Aunt Ida as well. And we would go to Terminal Tower, and there was a reason to go downtown. Now, with my kids, unless it's an Indians game or a Cavaliers game, they might not have much of a reason to come downtown. And there are many people that I know that I'm friends with that don't even come down here to work. They work in Independence or they work in Westlake. So my question to you guys is this. Who cares? How important is it to have a good downtown? Shouldn't we just build up the areas where people are already living? Why does downtown matter?
Well, the mayor of Louisville once said, you can't be a suburb of nowhere. So one is, for economic development purposes, the image for the entire region, including down in Stark County, really depends on the image of your downtown. Just think about what Detroit is pushing up against, right? And in fact, one of the things that makes Columbus work really is the architectural villages surrounding their downtown, and it's got an image as a vibrant place. Second is, if you want to attract kids, that's a positive attraction, right? However, I will point out that there are a couple things we found out about downtowns. One, you can't build them on the backs of drunks. So if it's all entertainment districts and bad behavior over beer, two or three shootings later, you're done. The second thing we learned is got to be true diversity of residential. And by the way, most of your customers aren't a bunch of kids looking for the next date, it's empty nesters. Some of them also looking for the next date, but that's a different issue.
Is that also what you find, Cleve?
Well, I want to just answer that question you asked originally. In Central Ohio, less than 30% of the economy is available to people without a car, because the buses service roughly 30% of the Central Ohio economy. So, and 10% of the households in Franklin County don't have access to a single car, let alone many have unreliable cars. So if you don't have a car or an unreliable car, you have access to 30% of the region's economy, and almost all of that is downtown. Every time a job leaves downtown Columbus, it probably goes to a point that's no longer accessible to that person and no longer supports the tax base for the city of Columbus. So, I mean, from a social standpoint, from a social justice standpoint, it's important to keep downtown healthy. But the other thing that's happening in Columbus, which I find very interesting, is that the city of Columbus is really two cities. The Columbus City Schools represent half the city of Columbus. Starting in 1955, every time the city annexed, the annexed property went to a suburban district. So the Columbus City School District is very similar to the city of Cleveland. It's landlocked.